The night was always her truest companion. When the world slept, she would slip onto the rickety balcony of the old apartment above the diner, lean her elbows on the rusting rail, and stare at the moon as if it held the answers she had been denied all her life. The glow turned her skin pale, her hair a waterfall of shadow, and though she looked human, she knew better. Her mother's voice still haunted her, a whisper from another life. Never reveal your wolf until the moon itself chooses you. She had been only 7 when she'd lost her mother, too young to understand why she had been forced to hide, too old to ever forget the weight of that warning. Years passed, and she became a ghost of herself, learning to laugh at human jokes, learning to smile while pouring endless cups of coffee, pretending her life was nothing but clattering plates and the smell of fried eggs. By day, she was just another small town waitress, but by night, her bones ached with the secret she carried. Her wolf paced inside her ribcage, restless, wild, pressing against the bars of a prison she had locked herself into. Sometimes, when the kitchen was empty and the hiss of the fryer drowned out her breathing, she would dig her nails into her palms until crescents of blood bloomed, just to remind herself she could still feel something raw. She wasn't ordinary, she never had been, and lately she could feel something changing. Her dreams had begun to twist, threaded with visions she couldn't explain. Always the same, a pair of eyes glowing gold in the shadows of the forest, watching her from the tree line. They were not cruel, but neither were they kind. They were powerful, too powerful, and when she woke, her heart still thundered, her wolf whispering one name she didn't yet know. Fate, she told herself it was nothing. Just the leftover ache of loneliness, the quiet longing of someone who had never belonged anywhere, but deep down she knew something, or someone, was drawing closer. The world outside her diner life was shifting. She felt it in the way the air thickened on nights like this, when the wind smelled like rain and ash and promises she couldn't understand. She felt it in her wolf, who no longer slept but prowled at the edges of her mind, growling low whenever the moon crested high. Her secret wouldn't stay hidden forever, and on some level she feared she didn't want it to. For in the reflection of that moonlit window, she could almost see herself as she truly was, silver eyes gleaming faintly, hair tumbling like liquid night, her wolf inside pressing closer, begging to be freed. But freedom came with a cost, and she knew, as surely as she knew the rhythm of her heartbeat, that the cost would be him, the shadow in her dreams, the alpha she had never met but whose presence she felt, like a storm on the horizon. Her story was already beginning, and when it found her, nothing would ever be ordinary again. The silver-eyed girl took a breath, her fingers curling against the rail. The night whispered her secret back to her, and in the distance something howled. The bell above the diner door jingled with its usual broken chime, and she forced her lips into a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Morning rush. The air was thick with the scent of burnt coffee, bacon grease, and too many voices all talking at once. The corner booth held the same 3 construction workers, already arguing over football scores. At the counter, old Mrs. Redding tapped her spoon impatiently against a chipped mug, waiting for her refill. She balanced 2 plates on one arm and wove between tables with practiced ease. It was muscle memory now: smile, pour, serve, laugh when expected. She had learned long ago how to blend into this world of humans. To them, she was just that pretty waitress with the sharp eyes. Nothing more, nothing dangerous. If only they knew. Her wolf stirred restlessly as the diner grew louder. The clatter of dishes struck her ears sharper than it should have. The grease fryer hissed like a threat. She inhaled and caught scents no one else could: cheap aftershave, perfume masking bitterness, the iron tang of someone's cut finger. The sensory storm never stopped, and every day was another test of control. "Hey, sweetheart, another coffee over here," a man in a plaid jacket called, his tone far too familiar. She bit back a sigh and walked over, pot in hand. "Sure thing," she said smoothly, pouring dark liquid into his cup. He winked, and she forced her smile wider. Her wolf growled at the gesture, a low rumble no one else could hear. Sometimes She wondered if she would ever stop feeling like a stranger in her own skin. From the kitchen window, her manager barked an order, sliding plates of pancakes onto the pass. Through, she hurried to grab them, ignoring the sting in her chest, that restless reminder that this life of pretending couldn't last forever. But she had no choice, not yet. A sharp laugh erupted from the booth behind her, and she caught whispers, her name, tangled with gossip. The girls from town never missed a chance to sneer at her, muttering about how she lived alone, how no one really knew where she came from. Their voices were daggers, but she kept walking, balancing plates with a steady hand. This was her life, coffee, tips, and secrets. And though she had almost convinced herself it would stay this way forever, something deep inside her wolf knew better. Change was coming. The bell above the diner door jingled again, and this time the air itself shifted. The bell over the diner door rattled again, but this time silence followed instead of chatter. Conversation stuttered, spoons froze mid-stir, and even the hiss of the fryer seemed to quiet. She felt it before she saw him. A heavy weight pressed through the air, thick and commanding, like the forest itself had stepped inside. Her wolf rose sharply, pacing against her ribs, ears pricked. She straightened unconsciously, the tray in her hands suddenly trembling. Then he walked in, tall, broad-shouldered. His presence filled the room before his voice ever could. Kale, the alpha of the largest pack in the region. She knew his name, everyone did, whispered like both warning and prayer. His stride was smooth, powerful, the kind that made lesser men shrink in their seats. Dark eyes scanned the diner, cool and unreadable, yet sparking with something more dangerous when they landed on her. For a breath she couldn't move. Her wolf surged forward, recognition lighting like fire in her veins. Her chest ached, heat coiling low in her stomach, and she gripped the tray tighter, afraid it would clatter to the floor. No, not here, not now. Kale didn't speak. He slid into a booth near the window, his pack following like shadows. The leather squeaked under his weight, but no one else dared move. Even the rude plaid jacket man from earlier ducked his head, suddenly meek. She forced her feet to carry her forward, every step a battle. Her smile, too wide, too brittle, was the only shield she had left. Coffee, she asked, her voice steady only because she willed it to be. Kale's gaze met hers. It was like being struck. Heat, ice, thunder, all in a single moment. She nearly gasped, but swallowed it down, hiding the storm inside. His nostrils flared slightly, and she knew what that meant. He had caught it, her scent. The silence stretched. Yes, he said finally, his voice a low rumble, rough like gravel, smooth like velvet. Her skin prickled at the sound of it. She poured the coffee, her hands shaking only slightly, and retreated as quickly as she could. But she felt a stare on her back, heavy and unrelenting, until her wolf was clawing, desperate to answer. The diner's chatter slowly resumed, but nothing was the same, not anymore, because the alpha had walked in. And he had looked at her as if he already knew. She tried to breathe evenly, tried to keep her hands busy with plates and coffee pots, but her body betrayed her. Every nerve tingled, every heartbeat thundered as though her chest could barely contain it. His eyes hadn't left her. Kale sat in the booth like a storm contained in human form, his pack murmuring around him, though none of them dared speak too loudly. They knew better, everyone did. The alpha's silence was always louder than words. But she wasn't just hearing silence, she was feeling it. Her wolf prowled closer, restless, her claws scraping against the walls of her mind. Her instinct screamed that something irreversible had already shifted. When she passed his table again, the air thickened. Kale's gaze sharpened, and before she could look away, he leaned forward, his hand brushing the edge of the table. His chest expanded as he inhaled, slow and deliberate. He was scenting her. The moment stretched, fragile and shattering all at once. His pupils flared, black swallowing gold, and a growl rumbled low in his throat, so quiet only she could hear it. Her tray nearly slipped from her grip. Recognition, it hit her like lightning, jolting through every nerve ending. The bond she had worked her entire life to deny roared alive, undeniable, searing. Her wolf howled inside, clawing to be let free, to leap into his arms to claim him. But Cale's face hardened. Instead of acceptance, a shadow crossed his eyes, something sharp and bitter. His jaw locked tight, as if fighting himself. With a sudden, violent movement, he shoved back from the booth. The legs of the chair scraped loud against the floor, cutting through the diner noise. Everyone froze again. Cale stood towering, his fists clenched. His gaze lingered on her one last time, conflicted, burning, furious, and then he turned sharply toward the door. His pack scrambled to follow, confusion etched on their faces. The bell above the door jingled as it closed behind him. She stood rooted to the floor, breath caught in her throat. He knows. Her hands trembled so violently she nearly dropped the tray. She forced herself to move, retreating to the kitchen, where the fryer hissed like a secret mocking her. But nothing drowned out the echo of his growl. Alpha Cale had recognized her, and he had walked away. The diner felt colder the next evening, though the heaters hummed and the smell of frying bacon clung to the air as always. She worked with her head down, trying to convince herself that yesterday had been nothing, an illusion, a cruel trick of her wolf's desperate imagination. But deep inside, she knew better. When the bell above the door rang, her stomach dropped. Cale, he entered with the same thunderous presence, his pack trailing behind like shadows. Conversations faltered, chairs scraped, and once again the whole diner shifted around him, bending to his gravity. Her wolf rose instantly, desperate, aching, recognizing the bond as fiercely as the blood in her veins. Her chest burned, her throat tightened, but she forced her steps steady, tray balanced in shaking hands. She told herself he wouldn't say it. Not here, not in front of everyone, but Alpha's didn't whisper. Cale's voice cut through the diner, low but sharp as a blade. "You don't belong here." The words slammed into her chest. At first, she thought he was speaking to someone else, but his eyes were locked on hers, cold and unyielding, his jaw set in stone. His pack glanced between them, some why, died, others smirking. The silence broke into murmurs, whispers curling like smoke through the diner. Her throat tightened. "Excuse me." Cale stood then, towering over the booth. His wolf pressed beneath his skin, a growl vibrating faintly in the air. "You're not one of us. Don't pretend. Don't lie." His gaze burned. "You're nothing." Gasps rippled through the room. Her vision blurred as laughter snickered from the booth of local girls, who always watched her with suspicion. The pack chuckled too, some openly, others under their breath. Heat scorched her cheeks, but it wasn't shame. It was fury. Her wolf snarled inside her, outraged, demanding she bare her teeth, demanding she fight. But she clenched her fists at her sides, nails cutting into her palms. Her lips parted, but no sound came. What could she say? What could she do, with every pair of eyes watching, waiting for her to break? Cale's gaze flickered, for just a moment, with something else, pain, hesitation. But it was gone as quickly as it came. He turned, motioned for his pack, and walked out without another word. The bell over the door jingled, casual and cruel. She stood frozen in the center of the diner, their laughter echoing around her, her wolf howling in her chest. She had been recognized, she had been claimed, and then she had been rejected. The laughter from the diner still clung to her skin like smoke long after the doors had closed. She had gone home in silence, her body moving on autopilot, but her chest burned with every step. His words echoed cruel and sharp, "You're nothing," but the night had no mercy for heartbreak. The moon rose high, round and silver, casting its glow across the woods behind her apartment. It called to her, pulling with invisible threads. She fought it at first, pacing the cramped living room, fists clenched, breath ragged. But her wolf would not be caged any longer. With trembling hands, she pushed open the balcony door and stepped into the cool night air. The scent of pine and earth rushed over her, sharp and wild. Her body shook, and then she let go. Bones shifted, skin rippled, silver fur burst across her frame. She dropped to her knees, breath hitching, as her wolf surged forward with a howl that split the silence. Her muscles stretched, her senses sharpened until every leaf's whisper, every heartbeat of the forest pulsed through her. She was free. For the first time in years the lie fell away. No apron, no forced smile, no heavy chains of denial, just the truth of what she was. Her silver coat gleamed like starlight under the moon, her eyes glowing as her wolf prowled into the clearing. The night welcomed her. The wind curled around her fur, carrying whispers only wolves could hear. She ran, leaping over roots, her paws sinking into damp soil. Every movement was liberation, every breath a promise. She was not nothing. She was power, but the rush of freedom faltered when the hairs along her spine rose. Someone was watching. She slowed, her ears twitching, nose lifting to the air. The scent reached her instantly, smoky, sharp, and infuriatingly familiar. Her wolf growled, lips curling back, even as her heart thudded painfully against her ribs. From the shadows, he stepped forward. Kale, the alpha, stood at the tree line, moonlight cutting across his face, his eyes locked on her with a hunger that betrayed his rejection. His chest rose and fell heavily, as if he had run to find her. For a long moment, neither of them moved, two wolves caught between fury and fate, and then his lips parted, his voice breaking the night like a vow and a curse. "You shouldn't exist like this." Her wolf bared her teeth, the sound vibrating low and primal through the clearing. The insult hit deeper than any blade. "You shouldn't exist like this." Kale didn't flinch. He stood rigid, the alpha mask locked in place, though his hands flexed at his sides, his eyes betraying the storm raging within. Gold bled through his irises, his wolf clawing at control, desperate to come forward. She padded closer, her silver coat shimmering under the moonlight. Her wolf wanted to lunge, to press herself against him, to force him to acknowledge the bond that pulsed like wildfire between them. But the sting of rejection still fresh in her chest made her hesitate. When she finally shifted back, skin replacing fur, she stood tall and unashamed in the moonlight. Her voice shook but carried steel. "You think hiding behind your pack's rules will erase this, that pretending I'm invisible will make me disappear." Her breath caught, but she refused to look away. "We both know what you felt in that diner. You can't scent me and deny me in the same breath." His jaw tightened, and for a heartbeat she saw it, the raw need flickering across his face. But then the alpha returned, sharp and merciless. "I can deny you," Kale growled. His voice was low, brutal. "I will. The pack will never accept a mate who hides in shadows, who lives like a human and deceives us all." Her nails dug into her palms, rage and hurt tangled, and before she could stop herself, the words tore free. "Maybe it's not the pack that won't accept me. Maybe it's you who's afraid." The accusation cut deeper than she expected. His nostrils flared, his fists clenched, and for a moment she thought he might actually lose control. His wolf snarled through his chest, vibrating the air, but he forced it down with visible effort. Their standoff burned in silence, broken only by the distant call of another wolf deep in the forest. Finally, Kale stepped closer, his voice a dangerous whisper that brushed her skin like fire. "You are a risk I cannot take." Her heart fractured. Her wolf howled inside, clawing to reject his rejection, but she refused to let him see her crumble. Instead, she lifted her chin, eyes glowing, power crackling faintly along her skin. "Then maybe the risk isn't me, Alpha. Maybe it's you choosing to defy fate." For the first time, Kale faltered. His mask slipped, his breath stuttering, just enough to prove her words had landed. And then, without another word, he vanished back into the trees, leaving her trembling in the moonlight, torn between fury and longing. Sleep had abandoned him. Kale sat at the edge of his bed, head in his hands, the darkness pressing in heavy and unrelenting. He had rejected her. He had spoken the words that should have severed any tie between them. Yet his wolf prowled inside him like a caged beast, snarling, refusing to let go. Her scent lingered in his lungs, maddeningly sweet, wild, untamed, laced with silver fire. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her standing beneath the moon, defiance glowing in her gaze. The wolf inside him bellowed a single truth. "Mate," Kale growled, shoving the word down, but the bond only coiled tighter. He pressed his palms into his eyes, breath ragged, damn it. His voice was raw. Why her, across town, she lay curled in her small bed, staring at the ceiling through tear. Blurred eyes, The ache in her chest pulsed with every beat of her heart, sharp and cruel. The rejection had been a knife, but what made it worse was the bond refusing to die. She could still feel him, his fury, his hunger, even the flickers of pain he tried so hard to hide. Her wolf whined softly inside her mind. He feels it too. She shut her eyes, pressing her pillow to her face, as if it could muffle the echo of him. "I don't want to feel him," she whispered. "I don't want to need him." But her body betrayed her, the bond dragging her closer no matter how she resisted. That night, both dreamt the same dream. She was standing in the woods, silver fur gleaming under the blood. Red moon. He appeared from the shadows, golden eyes burning, his wolf towering behind him like a living flame. They circled each other, pulled together, torn apart, the bond crackling between them like thunder. His voice reached her, rough and desperate. "You are mine." She woke with a gasp, her sheets tangled, her heart pounding against her ribs. Across town, Cale woke the same ways, wet slicking his skin, his wolf howling in triumph. No rejection could silence the truth. The bond lived, and if it lived, it could destroy them both. The diner felt different that night. She moved between tables with her practiced smile, balancing trays of coffee and plates of pie, but her skin tingled with unease. The laughter of her coworkers, the clatter of cutlery, none of it could drown out the sense of eyes watching her, not Cale's eyes, someone else's. Her wolf stirred restlessly, ears pricked to a danger she couldn't see. When the bell above the door chimed, the atmosphere shifted. A stranger stepped inside, tall, broad-shouldered, with hair as dark as midnight and eyes the color of burning coal. His presence commanded attention, and the room fell silent without him saying a word. He smiled when his gaze found her, slow, knowing. Her breath caught, her wolf stiffened, not him. The stranger slid into a booth, never breaking eye contact. When she brought him a menu, his voice rolled out like smoke, low, velvety, and unsettling. "You hide yourself well," he murmured, "just for her, but not from me. My wolf knows what you are." Her hand trembled as she set the menu down. "I think you're mistaken," she whispered, trying to pull away. His fingers brushed hers deliberately. "No mistake. You're meant to be mine." Her pulse thundered. She jerked back, nearly stumbling, but caught herself. Every instinct screamed at her to run. Yet the room was full of humans, unaware of the predator sitting at their table. She forced herself to retreat calmly, though her heart was a drumbeat in her ears. In the corner, Cale sat in the shadows, unseen. He had come to the diner not for food, not for company, but because his wolf refused to let him stay away. And now, watching that rival's bold claim, fury ignited in his chest. His claws nearly broke through his skin as he clenched his fists beneath the table. The stranger leaned back casually, eyes glittering with possession. "Tomorrow night," he called softly as she hurried past. "Meet me by the edge of the forest. I'll be waiting." Her steps faltered, but she didn't answer. Cale's jaw tightened. Every muscle in his body screamed to rise, to rip the rival apart where he sat. But he forced himself still, the pack's laws binding his rage. Not yet, not here, but his wolf snarled inside him, vicious and unyielding. "No one will take her, not while I breathe." The town square was alive with the hum of evening life. Market stalls closing, families strolling, the air carrying the scent of roasted meat and autumn leaves. She tried to keep her head down as she crossed the square, her apron still tied from her shift, but whispers followed her like shadows. And then he appeared, the rival alpha, his coal. Black eyes found her instantly, and the smirk that curved his lips promised nothing but possession. With deliberate slowness, he stepped into the center of the square and raised his voice, making sure every wolf in earshot could hear. "I claim her as mine." The words struck like thunder, conversations halted, heads turned, gasps rippled through the gathering crowd, her breath hitched, horror freezing her in place. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "No, I never." But before she could speak louder, Cale's voice cut through the night like a blade. "She is not yours." The crowd shifted, parting as Cale strode forward, his presence towering, his golden eyes burning with a storm barely contained. His wolf pressed just beneath the surface, radiating power that made lesser wolves bow their heads without thinking. The rival alpha's smirk widened. "Strange words, Cale. Didn't you reject her in front of your own pack?" Seems like you left her wide open for another alpha to step in. Murmurs spread like wildfire through the watching crowd. Doubt, shock, betrayal. Wolves fed on gossip, and this was blood in the water. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She could feel both of them pulling at her. Kale's fury, the rival's dark claim, and the pressure was unbearable. She wanted to vanish, to melt into the night, but her wolf would not let her. Her wolf stood tall inside her chest, furious, unyielding. "I'm not anyone's to claim," she snapped, her voice trembling with both fear and defiance. The crowd hushed at her words, eyes widening. Few females ever spoke against an alpha's claim, and fewer still lived to tell of it. The rival alpha's expression darkened, though his smile never faltered. "We'll see about that. Tomorrow night, under the moon, I'll challenge you, Kale. The pack will choose their rightful alpha, and she will stand beside the victor." Gasps erupted. The challenge was made. It could not be undone. Kale's fists clenched at his sides, every muscle taut with the promise of violence. His wolf howled within him, savage and protective. He met the rival's gaze unflinching. So be it. The crowd erupted into chaos, torn between fear and excitement. And in the middle of it all, she stood frozen, realizing that by the next moonrise, she would be fought over like a prize in a war she never asked for. The night of the blood moon came cloaked in crimson fire. The pack gathered in the clearing, every wolf restless, their breath fogging in the cold night air. The towering pines whispered like ghosts, and above them, the swollen moon glowed red. A bad omen, some whispered, though none dared say it aloud. She stood at the edge of the circle, her hands trembling as she pulled her jacket tighter. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to flee into the woods where no alpha could bind her fate, but her wolf stood firm. Tonight was more than her destiny, it was survival. Kale entered first, golden eyes fierce, every line of his body coiled with power. The rival alpha stepped into the opposite side, his coal, black gaze promising ruin. The tension snapped like lightning as the pack parted to give them space. "This ends tonight," the rival sneered. "When the blood moon falls, she'll stand beside the alpha strong enough to claim her." Kale growled low, his wolf surging forward, muscles rippling. "She's not a prize to be claimed." His voice carried over the circle, strong, defiant. "She's mine because fate itself chose her." The crowd erupted with howls torn between allegiance and doubt. The fight began with a thunderous crash, claws, fangs, and fury colliding under the blood-stained sky. The earth shook with every strike, wolves circling, growls rumbling like thunder. She clutched her chest, the mate bond lashing her with Kale's pain. Each blow he took burning through her veins as if her own body suffered. Then, chaos, a shadow slipped through the pack's ranks, one of Kale's own betas, Darren, trusted and loyal for years, lunged not at the rival but at Kale. Gasps tore from the watching wolves, betrayal. Kale staggered, blood streaking down his side from the sudden strike. The rival alpha's laughter boomed, cruel and victorious. "Even your pack knows you're unfit to lead." Her wolf snarled. Rage filled her chest, hot and consuming. Without thinking, she stepped forward into the circle. Silver light burst from her skin as she shifted, fur shimmering like liquid moonlight, eyes blazing. The crowd reeled, stunned. The waitress, the outcast, the girl Kale had once rejected. Her wolf was radiant, magnificent, undeniable. With a snarl, she launched herself between Kale and the rival alpha, her claws flashing, her voice carrying through the bond. "You will not take what's mine to choose." The rival alpha's grin faltered. The pack's whispers rose like a storm, and Kale, bloodied but unbroken, stared at her with something raw in his eyes. Fear, awe, and a love he could no longer deny. The clearing still crackled with tension. Wolves whispered in disbelief, their eyes fixed on her silver wolf, standing protectively before Kale. Her fur gleamed like starlight under the blood. Red moon, her presence so powerful it silenced even the rival alpha's mocking laughter. Kale struggled to his feet, blood running from the wound his betraying beta had left. His gaze locked on her, and for a moment the world narrowed to only them. Her glowing wolf, his ragged form, and the bond that pulsed alive between their hearts. The rival alpha growled. You protect him after he spat on you in front of his pack. You deserve better, stronger. Her wolf bristled, lips curling in a snarl, but her human voice echoed within her, raw and trembling. Do I? Kale staggered closer, pain etched across his face, but his voice, low, cracked, was filled with truth. I was a coward. The words froze the air, the crowd hushed, even the rival tilted his head, curious. Kale's golden eyes burned as he faced her. The moment I scented you, I knew. You were mine, my mate, but your wolf, his voice faltered, awe and fear entwined. She was too strong, stronger than any wolf I've ever seen, and I thought the bond was a curse, that the moon goddess was punishing me with a mate who could destroy me. Her chest ached. His rejection hadn't been out of disgust. It had been fear. He lowered his head, baring his throat in front of the entire pack. A gesture of surrender, of humility. I was wrong. You're not my curse. You're my salvation. And if you never forgive me, I'll still protect you with everything I am. Her wolf trembled inside her, torn between fury and longing. Part of her wanted to tear away, to remind him of the agony he'd caused. But another part, deeper, wilder, burned with the truth of their bond. The rival alpha's snarl shattered the silence, pathetic, an alpha groveling like a pup. She needs a mate who takes, not begs. He stepped forward, claws glinting in the blood moonlight, and I will take her. The pack roared, chaos building, the circle fraying at the edges. Wolves were choosing sides in real time. She turned, silver fur bristling, caught between two fates. Gale's trembling honesty and the rival's brutal certainty. Her choice would crown an alpha. Her choice would decide her destiny. And under the blood, red moon, her wolf whispered one truth. You cannot run anymore. The clearing shook with snarls and howls as the rival alpha lunged, his claws flashing, his eyes burning with cruel certainty. She met him head-on. Her silver wolf collided with his dark form, the force of impact sending shockwaves through the gathered pack. They tumbled across the blood, stained ground, teeth snapping, fur bristling, the bond of fate and the rage of defiance igniting in every strike. She wasn't fighting only for herself. She was fighting for her freedom, her truth, her right to choose. Kale, bleeding but unbroken, surged into the fray. His golden wolf burst free in a blaze of fire, his roar shaking the night. Together, he and her silver wolf moved as one, moonlight and flame, fury and devotion, driving the rival back with each strike. But the rival was relentless. She'll never forgive you, he snarled, claws raking Kale's side. She'll never trust a coward. Kale staggered, blood dripping into the dirt, but his gaze never left her. Then I'll spend every breath proving her wrong, he growled, his voice shaking with raw conviction. She is mine, not because I demand it, because I choose her, again and again. Something in her heart broke open at his words, the ache of rejection, the sting of humiliation. It didn't vanish, but it shifted. His voice, his surrender, his fight for her, they were real. With a furious snarl, she launched at the rival, her silver light blazing so brightly the pack shielded their eyes. Her jaws locked onto his throat. For one terrible moment, the world held its breath. Then, she threw him down, her fangs stopping just short of killing him. The rival's eyes widened. He had been beaten, not by Kale alone, by her. The clearing fell silent, the pack stunned. No female wolf had ever claimed victory over an alpha in open combat. Breathing hard, she stepped back, her fur shimmering like starlight. Kale, bloodied but standing tall, came to her side. Together they looked out over the pack. The rival staggered to his feet, eyes narrowing, but he saw the truth in the pack's gaze. They were no longer his to sway. With a final snarl, he vanished into the trees, his shadow swallowed by the night. Silence lingered, then one by one wolves bent their heads, first a handful, then the entire circle, bowing to the pair who stood side by side. Her wolf turned toward Kale, golden eyes meeting silver. The bond surged, fierce and undeniable, wrapping around them both until she could no longer resist. She shifted back into her human form, breathless, trembling, but her voice steady. You rejected me once. Don't you dare again. Kale cupped her face, his hands rough, his eyes raw. Never again. By the moon goddess, by my blood, by my soul. You are mine, always. When his lips claimed hers, the bond snapped into place with a blaze of light so brilliant it seemed the stars themselves burned brighter. The pack howled their approval, the sound carrying far into the night. And beneath the endless sky, with the stars as their witnesses, she was no longer the hidden waitress, no longer the girl who kept her wolf in chains. She was his mate, his equal, his alpha, forever bound under the stars.